Good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, July 18th, 2023 meeting of the Norwood Board of Selectmen. As always, we will begin with a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance. In reverse order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Tonight's meeting is being broadcast live by NCM, and we will begin with warrant signature update. Agenda item number 1, submitting notification of reviewed and approved warrant reports signed by the board's representative.
Motion to file.
Motion to file made by Mr. Plasko, seconded by Ms. Groh. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Second item, meeting minutes for approval of the board, the meeting minutes of June 27th, 2023.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve made by Mr. Donnelly, seconded by Mr. Sad. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous. Great. So we've got a pretty packed meeting tonight. We have an appointment at 6:35. Ms. Plasko, is it okay to start that appointment early?
Absolutely, it's just an appointment.
Great.
Not a public hearing.
Not a public hearing. Great. So we have representatives from the Bach Automotive presenting a donation to the board. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The floor is yours.
Michael Clummy from Super New England, the Bach family, Ernie Bach Jr., and the Bach family tonight. I'd like to give a check to the town from the Board of Selectmen, and appreciate the partnership, and continue looking forward for another year. And Mr. Bach started this many years ago, and Ernie Jr. has carried on with the Bach legacy, and we're very proud to be part of the community. So thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it greatly. I'll open it up to comments from other board members, but I know this, it's a great thing that you do. We really appreciate you being here.
Yeah,
Sentiments
well,
the same. Really
so-
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Mr. Sad.
Michael, thank you, and thank Ernie and the entire Bach Foundation and family, and I want to thank you for helping out the Papuana team in the inner city this week. A lot of great ideas, and you know we coach Papuana, so I know you help out the Norwood Papuana, and I appreciate and I thank you and Ernie and the family for everything you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ernie Bach Senior, as you noted, started this and giving this gift to the town annually, and it goes a long way. It does a lot of good things. But Junior gave it a little twist, and he brought in his grandfather as well in
Yes.
recognition of both of them. So thanks again to the organization and all of you for bringing us forward to the town.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the donation. Much appreciated. I know that over the past few years, it's been very helpful to numerous organizations who put in the applications for our consideration. And with that, Mr. Chair, I think maybe, I don't know if this meeting is appropriate, or perhaps next week we should talk about setting a timeline for applications to be received and for setting up a time when they are due.
Yeah,
afterwards.
I think we are meeting next week, so I think that would be a good agenda item just to make sure the public knows the dates involved. So, again, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Excellent. Yeah.
Who's going to get the check now?
wait a minute. I don't know about this.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael.
Great. So we do have a few public hearings at 7:15, and 7:30. But I think we can move on and hit up some of the new business first. We do have Mr. Ryan from the Department of Public Works here. So if it's okay with the rest of the board, I'll just take the items pertaining to Mr. Ryan a little bit out of order. You okay with that, Mr. Vice Chair? Great. Great. So we're going to go to item 4.2. And that's the possible sewer connection with Sharon via Sunrise Assisted Living. Mr. Ryan submitting information about a possible sewer connection with the town of Sharon. The floor is yours, Mr. Ryan.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So Sunrise Assisted Living is a nationwide company that is looking to put a facility in Sharon off of Edge Hill Road, which is just past Union Street of the Sharon-Norwood line. They are looking to connect to the town of Norwood sewer system. This is very much like the Avalon Bay sewer connection in Sharon that in 2006 that the town approved, and they have approached General Manager Mizuko about the possibility of doing that. But before they proceed any further, they were looking at what type of cost they think the town of Norwood would look for the project to connect to the sewer system. This is not something the town of Norwood needs per se. We would not have to maintain their sewer system if they connected into it. It provides a great benefit to them. So in the memo I addressed to General Manager Mizuko back in June, and I revised in July of 13 because there was a Scribner error. I made some recommendations based on the last Avalon Bay project, and you have that memo in front of you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about my recommendations in that memo.
Great, thank you, Mr. Ryan. So we'll open it up to questions from the board and have a discussion. And then you are looking for a recommendation to take back to Sunrise, correct?
Correct, so we would look for the authorization, if this board so approves, for General Manager Mizuko to go to Sunrise and start negotiating some kind of connection fees and requirements.
Great, thank you, Mr. Ryan. Questions or comments from the board? Mr. Plasko?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused. Looking for some direction to go forward, but this cover letter from Mr. Mizuko says it's for informational purposes only. So, and I was gonna ask what that meant. Why is it only informational? Because it seems you're gonna need some authorization to go back, and that is in fact what you're looking for tonight.
That's what we're looking for tonight, is some authorization from the board, the comfort level to, do you want this or not? And are these recommendations something that you feel comfortable with? These are just my recommendations based on past history and some updated prices for some of the things I identified. But at a minimum, that's what I would recommend for this project.
So, as was necessary with Avalon, and as you noted in your letter to memo to Mr. Mizuko, other agencies need to approve this, like MWRA and so forth. Obviously, it has to be directly involved. What about the town of Sharon? Are they aware of this at this point?
They are, absolutely. And they would be involved, and they would be co-applicant with Sunrise to make this happen, absolutely.
So you've given us some breakdown of maybe what seems like what would be fair cost and charges if the town went forward. I wouldn't have any reason to question your recommendation on that, but you also said this isn't anything we really need. So why should we, do you think we should give it any further consideration?
Money.
They have a real,
The
are they
first
really
item
strapped
on
at
that
this?
is a dollar value that might benefit us greatly. There's a couple other items in there that would help us out financially, improving our infrastructure. So there is an advantage there, but are we in dire need of it? No, I don't think that. But I think this is some entity has approached us, and I think this is the bottom floor of what we think we should ask them for, and if this board thinks higher, great. If not, that's fine too.
Okay. I guess I wanted us and the public to hear that there are some benefits to the community, such as improvements in the infrastructure. We're not just doing this for nothing.
Correct. Yeah, there's substantial benefit to the town when you get to the money stages and infrastructure improvements, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Yeah, Mr. Donnelly?
Just to follow up on Mr. Plasko's questions. So as I'm reading this, it seems to me that you've cited a good deal of information here regarding a fee to be assessed. The fee would essentially cover the cost that we would incur for the I&I work, the construction work, as well as the sewer connection fee and the pump station generator. Above and beyond that, you also have a dollar amount way, significantly above those costs, which I guess essentially would be the equivalent of an entrance fee for Norwood, for Sharon to enter, or for Sunrise to enter into our system. So I'll hold. That's the only question I have would be. I I don't know if you know the answer to this. Is it unusual for, I think with the Avalon, was that also sewer or was it water? Was it sewer?
Just sewer.
Just so, okay, so
Mhm.
the MWA does have experience with taking in small systems like this.
Mhm.
Okay, I just wasn't sure
Yep.
whether or not the sewer system on the NWA side is at capacity. So with that information, I'll stop questions, but I think it's, I think there is a benefit to Norway financially. And on an ongoing basis, besides the fees that we have here, are there any maintenance or ongoing costs that we would need to be considered in terms of, this covers how to get them on
Mhm.
our system, but going forward, are there any maintenance activities that we would be accepting because we now have the, that small
Other than,
Sunrise?
with Avalon Bay, which is a similar
Mhm.
project, just coordinating with them, some of their, the holding tank, which is, so in there you see a holding tank for 2 days of flow, and that's, if there's this hurricane roaring up the East Coast, and we're concerned that the MWRA system can't handle everything, they would retain their flow for a period of time. We haven't had that really since, but there's a coordination effort, billing effort at the Light Department, who handles the water and sewer billing. I mean, there's a little effort there. They have to coordinate with Sharon, getting their water bills, and then, determining the sewer bills. So there's minor costs involved on the town, but all in all, it's really not a heavy lift for us.
And assuming that we were to provide you with a positive vote for direction for you and the manager to enter negotiations with Sunrise, I would assume this would also require coming back to us with the written agreement and looking for the formal approval for us to enter into an agreement with Sunrise.
Absolutely.
And as you go along through your negotiations, perhaps periodic updates to us in terms of
Absolutely.
how they're going.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan.
Thanks, Mr. Donnelly. Mr. Sad?
Just one question, Mr. Ryan, on the golf course over there, I know they came and tied into our system, but I think they're building more houses and condos in the back. Are we being compensated for that, or is just one flat?
Thank you, Selectman Sad. They actually never connected to us. There was discussion of it.
Oh, they didn't?
Yeah, but they did not.
Okay.
There was discussion of it at one time, that whole development, but they didn't follow through on that.
Okay.
Now, you'll see at the town line, there's a large building there now. That's a water interconnection with Sharon to provide them emergency supply in the event their wells, something went wrong with their wells.
From the town of Norwood?
From the town of Norwood. And
Okay.
we received a substantial amount of funds to improve our infrastructure for that, pave roads.
Okay.
But, yeah, the golf course did not eventually hook up. They talked about it, but they did not.
Thank you.
Ms. Grill?
I was actually good. I didn't have any questions. I thought the information that Mr. Ryan provided was pretty straightforward and similar to Mr. Plasko. As long as the public's getting a benefit from it, I'd be in favor with going along with the recommendation.
Great, yeah, and Mr. Ryan, I thought that your reasoning behind the specific number was sound, and we understand that this is this is our first shot at this, and we don't know what the reaction will be, and we may have to adjust, so there's probably going to be some back and forth, so I'm sure this is not the last that we've heard of this, so. But we appreciate the information that you put together. Mr. Plasko, it looked like you had something else.
Well, I was just going to say that I was going to offer a motion that Mr. Donnelly just recited. So I don't know if he wants to make it, and I'll second it, but basically to authorize and direct Mr. Ryan and Mr. Mizuko to continue conversations around the numbers and details that Mr. Ryan has presented to us, subject to the board reviewing and final approval of a recommended contract agreement between the parties.
I'll second that.
Great. Motion made by Mr. Plasko, seconded by Mr. Donnelly. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Ryan. We'll hear back from you, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Great. So we'll move on to item 4.3, grant of location with FM Global. We have an FM Global representative. Feel free to sit at the front table. Next. Oh, we got to, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Pull up a chair, please. Yeah, great.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, could I ask Attorney DeLuca to come in?
Mr. DeLuca? Great. Dave?
Submitting a grant of location for approval of the for the construction at the FM Global site. Great. Why don't you introduce yourself? We know Mr. Ryan, and then we can get started.
Certainly. I'm Brian Benson. I'm here representing the construction manager, Shama Design Construction, working with FM Global and Oxford Real Estate on this project. And with us this evening, we also have Scott Turner. Scott?
Right. My name's Scott Turner. I'm the civil engineer on the project with Environmental Partners. We prepared the plans and the presentation that's up. One point of just mention, I guess, we're supposed to have a representative from FM Global here tonight. He had a death in his family. He was unable to attend, so that's why he's not here. It's very sudden, so.
Sorry. Our condolences. The floor is yours.
Sir?
Okay. Well, like you mentioned, we're here to discuss right-of-way improvements on the FM Global Campus Redevelopment Project. We have the short presentation to go through. This is an existing conditions plan of the site. Existing hotel at 1125. 1151 is an existing office building. 1175 is a existing medical office building, and it has some FM Global offices. There's a learning center and a simulation center in the rear of the site. The site borders on Route 1. Next slide. The proposed project, which has been approved by the planning board, contemplates the demolition of 1151 and the construction of a 300,000 square foot office and research building at 1165. It's this building located in this location here, as well as a large 930 space garage that's located behind the project behind the existing building at 1175, along with a significant amount of site improvements and landscaping. Next slide. So what we're here to talk to you about is really the area that's highlighted in red. That is the right-of-way of FM Global Way. And as you can see, it kind of extends into the project site. So as part of our site development plan, we had a small amount of utility and surface improvements proposed. Next slide. And here you can see a little closer some of the improvements that we have. The installation of utility poles by Verizon, installation of electric conduit that's going to run under FM Global Way, some slight regrading of the intersection to meet the proposed changes on the site development, some curbing, sidewalk, and a gravel path, and also some pavement striping. So the site, if you're not familiar with the property lines, it really seems like it's part of the FM Global site, and we're here to just ask for your approval to do this work.
Great. Mr. Ryan, I'd like to hear from you first, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Mr. Turner laid out, this was a project that was approved by the planning board. There was extensive review by many town departments for this work here, all the site development there. We've all approved the proposal that's working there. We're very fortunate that FM Global has come here and is going to make this the world headquarters. They're going to improve that whole entrance coming from Pleasant Street, and part of the work there involves installing a water main, which makes so much sense for this whole project since this is going to be the world headquarters. So we totally support this grant of location request if that's the appropriate avenue, and look forward to this project continuing. They're working diligently down there, and been great to work with, all the site contractors and the project managers. So like I said, recommend approval for the request here tonight.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Ryan. I'll open it up to questions from the board. Mr. Sad.
I have just one question, Mark, on the board, these two. Going out to Pleasant Street, there's a C&E Auto there, and I've been getting a lot of phone calls about people parking cars on the repair shop side, C&E Auto. Is there any way you put a little fence there so they don't jump up and over into the hill? Maybe these two, somehow we can incorporate that
So are people parking there?
on the sidewalk.
Okay.
But take a look at it. The chief's been ticketing them. But I
They
think,
have?
yeah,
Ticketing.
but there's a lot of activity there in that shop. And they shouldn't be parking on the sidewalk, because you obviously need that to get from point A to B for your backyard area.
Right.
So
Do you
just-
know who's parking? Do you have any
The
idea
auto
who's
body.
parking?
I don't know who it is, but just look in, if you can,
Okay,
you'll see them up there on the hill.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Grail? Mr. Plasko?
Thank you. I am thrilled with what FM Global is doing here, and I see no reason thus far to object to what you're doing and want to do, and the reason you're here tonight, but I have questions for town council. And that is, what is the best legal mechanism to allow this? Mr. Ryan mentioned a grant of location. I know we do that type of thing with utilities, but I don't know if grant of location is only for utilities or whatever. Or would it be a 4453 where they do the work on the town's property, we accept it? It's a town road where they have the right of way through it. Now they want to make these improvements that serve their needs. And the water connection, of course, goes out to Pleasant Street. The other condition I personally would like to see any approval we give is that connection, and I'll leave it to Mr. Ryan professionally to determine what I'm talking about, but a significant patch area of that road, because we just paved it. We don't want just a little patch there where the digging's done. On the,
There may be
the right,
about,
I want the right legal way to approve it, protect the town with any potential liabilities or anything.
Right. There may be a couple of different ways to approach it, and you've named a couple. I think the approach that they have right here, right now, is perfectly appropriate for the Board of Selectmen to approve, and thereby, send the matter forward, and I think it protects the town, and, in any form that's necessary. You can condition, you can, set the parameters as you wish. It's a town way, but I think this approach is perfectly appropriate.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Plasko. Yeah, I think my question, similar to that, would have been about mitigating risk and liability, but for Attorney DeLuca to say that we're covered in this way, that's great. Mr. Donnelly?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Okay, seeing no further
Maybe to
questions.
approve the grant of location as identified in the documents in the approved site plan approval of the planning board, with the condition that Pleasant Street be repaired to status satisfactory to the town engineer.
Motion made by Mr. Plasko, seconded by Ms. Grow. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous. Great,
Thank you.
thank you so much. Mr. Ryan, I think we can get you out of here before 7. So the next item that we'll hit up is 4.4 National Grid paving donation. Submitting donation intended for paving from National Grid. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So this has been an annual thing we've been doing for a few years. National Grid, as you know, is very active in town, upgrading their infrastructure, which is great. I mean, there's a lot of old gas pipes up there, and they're upgrading them and making them safe and providing better service. So as they go into a neighborhood, they have a trench. And initially you see what we call temporary trench that's there. You drive down and maybe it's a little unsightly, maybe it's a little rough, but they're obligated by their street opening permit to do a permanent trench patch. So what we've been successful with working with National Grid is, rather than coming back under their obligation of the street opening permit and mobilizing a contractor to come in and dig up the road and repave it, we look for funds from them. We take those funds and then we use it for a roadway resurfacing curb to curb.
And we own the process.
And we own the whole process, and it's worked out very well. National Grid's bought into this. It saves them the mobilization. I think the prices that we look for are very fair and reasonable, and it's helped our street repaving program.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Any questions from the board or comment?
Make a
We've been
motion to
doing it.
accept.
Motion to accept made by
Second.
Mr. Donnelly, seconded by Mr. Plasko. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous. Thank you for your time. We
Thank you.
appreciate
Good night,
it.
everyone.
We got you out of here before 7, all right. Good.
Go easy, Mark.
Great. So we have a few more minutes before our first public hearing. We'll just go in order. Item 4.5, one-day liquor request, the Ron Marshalsea Trade Scholarship Fundraiser. Submitting request for a one-day liquor license for the Ron Marshalsea Trade Scholarship Fundraiser to be held on Saturday, August 19th, 2023, from 12 p.m. until 4 p.m. with 100 guests expected in the field and lot near the 152 Winslow Street location.
I'd like to make a motion, we accept it.
Motion to accept made by Mr. Sad, seconded by Ms. Grow. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous. Item 4.6, I'm actually going to take that a little bit after. And item 4.7, one-day liquor request, Norwood Portuguese Club. Submitting a request from Norwood Portuguese Club for a one-day liquor permit for July 24th, 2023 for a party at their 1090 Washington Street location from 6 p.m. until 12 a.m. with 85 guests expected.
Motion to approve. the
Motion to
request.
approve made by Mr. Donnelly, seconded by Mr. Sad. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous. A one-day liquor request, Castle Island, submitting request for a one-day liquor license for 3 separate pop-up beer garden events scheduled for August 2nd, 2023, August 16th, 2023, and August 27th, 2023 during the summer concert series located near the town common with approximately 100 people expected. Yes, Mr. Plasko.
Clarification of, Jess, if I may, probably should have asked it on the last one as well, because it applies. We're talking beer and wine, or are these for liquor?
These are beer and wine.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the clarification, Mr.
Move
Plasko.
approval?
Motion to approve made by Mr. Plasko, seconded by Mr. Sad. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous. Item 4.9, one-day liquor request, St. Catharines, submitting request for a one-day liquor license for St. Catharines Home and School Association for their back-to-school barbecue on Saturday, September 9th, 2023, from 5 p.m. until 9 p.m. in their back parking lot field of 259 Hatton Street, location with under 500 guests expected.
Motion to approve the request.
Motion approved made by Mr. Donnelly, seconded by Ms. Grow. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous. Item 4.10, Town Common request, Norwood Recreation Department Paint Night, submitting a request for use of the Town Common for a paint night on August 14th, 2023, from 6 p.m. until 7 p.m. Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve?
Motion approved made by Ms. Grow, seconded by Mr. Sad. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous. We got 2 more minutes, we can do it. Item 4.11, Town Common request reschedule of Arabic Baptist Church event, submitting request to reschedule their event, which was canceled due to rain, to July 30th, 2023.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So I'd like to just amend the request. This request is rescheduling. They're requesting use of the common up to 6:30 on the 30th of July. That does conflict slightly with the Sunday night concerts, which do begin at 6:30, but the band usually is on site as early as 4:30 to set up.
Mhm.
So I'd like to offer an amendment that we approve this one-day request to a maximum of 4:30 in the afternoon, as opposed to 6 as they requested.
Yeah, sure, that's fine by me.
Second.
Great, motion made to amend the request by Mr. Donnelly, seconded by Mr. Sad. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous. Great. Okay, it's just about 7 o'clock, so we can bring in our first group. Mr. Rosen, I forgot to introduce you earlier. I apologize. We just wanted to get rolling because we have a lot going on. But tonight we are in the presence of our Assistant Town Manager, Mike Rosen. Thank you, Mike.
Sure,
Mr.
thank you.
Mizuko is on a well-deserved vacation, and Mike is sitting with us. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you.
Great. Jess, would you like to read the 7 o'clock appointment? And Mike, if you could get the...
Sure.
That'd be great.
Application has been made to the licensing board of the town of Norwood by Harvey's One Up Arcade LLC, DBA Hometown Arcade, Matthew Snow, manager of record, for a new all alcoholic beverages license under section 12, chapter 138 to 140 of the Massachusetts General Laws as amended for the sale of all alcoholic beverages to be drunk on the premises of 61 Endicott Street, Building 26A, Norwood, Massachusetts. Description of the premises is as follows. Building is 1 story with 2 rooms. The square footage of the building is 3,732 square feet. There's an additional 1,500 square feet of outdoor space. Public hearing on this application will be held Tuesday, July 18, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the Harrington Butters Chambers, room 34 in Norwood Town Hall.
Great, welcome. Before we start, I just will say that we have a hearing at 7, 7:15, and 7:30 p.m., and all of those individual hearings are for the same license that is available. So we will not take a vote until all 3 hearings have closed. Sure. Just for your vision. The floor is yours. Introduce yourself.
All right, great. Thank you, Mr. Lane. Well, thanks for your consideration and for having us tonight. My name's Matt Snow. This is my wife, Shelley, and my business partner, Chris Crone.
How's it going?
We're the owners of Hometown Arcade. Like Jess said, we're based in Norwood. We're based in the Winsmith Mill Plaza. So just a little bit about us. So we're a retro-style video game arcade. We have upwards of 60-plus classic video games, ranging from everything from kind of Pac-Man to pinball, bubble hockey, air hockey, skee-ball, arcade basketball, as well as video game consoles on TVs. What we're trying to shoot for basically with our business is we're a family-style entertainment option that won't break the bank. How we basically charge customers is we charge a flat $20 admission fee, and then all of our games are set to free play, and then there's no time limits or anything like that, so customers can hang out and game all day long if they'd like to. Just in terms of our hours, so we're open Monday through Thursday, 12 to 9. Friday and Saturday, 10 to 11, and then Sunday from 10 to 9. In terms of our capacity inside, we have table seating for up to 94 people. And just a little bit about kind of retro arcades. So retro arcades have really made a big comeback in the rest of the United States and in Canada as well. Massachusetts, for one reason or another, has been a little bit slow in terms of the uptick of retro-style video game arcades. But we're seeing that arcades are really thriving around the country. And also, too, pinball is at an all-time high in terms of people that are playing pinball games. I think Jess already talked about our square footage. The reason why we're really kind of pursuing the license tonight is because we've got a lot of feedback from our guests and folks in the community indicating that this is an offering that they'd like us to add to our offering. At the same time, though, we want to be a family-first establishment, and this would just be another additional offering for our customers. The reason why we, again, kind of started the business is to offer a unique family entertainment experience that's really not like a lot of options that exist in the area. We're really passionate about gaming and recreation and just, trying to create a fun experience for folks that visit us. This is Chris over here. So Chris is a longtime friend, and we actually have the exact same birthday, same day, same year.
Same day, same year, yeah.
Chris actually has over 20 years of experience in the hospitality industry, including a lot of bar and restaurant experience.
23 years as a bartender.
And he's tip certified, and he would be our bar manager. Just in terms of the space that we found, so we'd been looking for approximately 9 months in the Metro West and South Shore area before we found the space in Norwood. And we've really found that, Norwood's been very welcoming to us in terms of our business. We've gotten a lot of support from, the town government. We're just excited to be part of the community. We're taking part in a lot of different fundraising activities for like PTAs and that type of thing in town. Little League Baseball, we're doing sponsorships, that type of thing as far as like town outreach goes. And so we opened up our doors May 12th, and so we've been open for a little over 2 months now, and business so far has been very successful. Rainy days in the summer are usually our peak, time periods, but even on nice, hot, sunny days, we have a pretty good amount of foot traffic as well. If we are awarded this partnership or this liquor license, we plan to invest in some of those kind of high-tech ID scanning and license scanning machines to, validate that folks are, of legal drinking age. And we do that as part of, this whole process. So I think that's pretty much all I have. Just wanted to thank everybody for the opportunity and for your consideration.
Great, thank you. So we'll open it up to questions and comments from the board, and then we'll ask for any comment from the public. But we do have another appointment at 7:15, so we're probably going to just keep it moving. But thank you.
Yeah.
Questions, comment from the board, Mr. Sad.
My concern would be is going out of that area, that general residence zone on the right. That's my only thought and process of anybody that's going down there back out or back in, racing into that area. But that's the old tannery, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a fair amount of speed bumps in the.
Oh, I know all the bumps over there.
Oh, okay, yeah. Maybe we could get some more added just to just to help with the speeding. But we haven't seen a problem with speeding.
And there's an existing, entertainment location, a sort of a night music
Nightclub.
hall.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, there haven't been any
Fallout
issues
shelter.
in the surrounding residential area.
Well, welcome to Norwood. It's a crown jewel of the Commonwealth, so I hope it's successful in your
Yeah.
endeavors.
Yeah.
Thank
We
you.
love it so far.
It's a great town.
Yep.
All good.
Ms. Grow.
No questions.
Mr. Plasko.
Thank you. A few. Your application says that the seating capacity is 100, but your floor plan only shows 13 seats. Is that all you're looking for?
The floor plan doesn't have movable seats in it. It just has the kind of the bar area. So there's a lot of different tables in the back part of the
That's part of my problem. You haven't shown us what you're supposed to show us on your floor plan. There's no indication of storage or anything else. You also haven't applied for food. You're not serving any food.
No, so we have a partnership with a food truck that's going to be on site permanently, offering bar pizza as well as barbecue food. It's a restaurant chain based in the next town over. Sharon, thank you.
Yeah.
So that's basically the food offering. So people we'd have QR codes on our tables, and people would be able to order from the food truck within inside the arcade. And in terms of the floor plan,
I'm not sure that satisfies our legal requirements, but we'll look at that a little further down the road.
I think
I'm
it's-
also questioning your, mentioned your days and hours of operation. Monday through Thursday, 12 to 9, so on and so forth. But the lease you gave us basically says you're only in business Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
That isn't correct. Our operating hours are what I indicated before. The lease, I didn't even know that it had operating hours in there. That's not correct.
You didn't know your lease had dates?
It's a very thick document. I didn't know that particular detail in there, though.
First page.
And just going back, actually, the setup, in terms of the food truck, it's very, very similar to other establishments in the area, such as the Irish Brewing Company, as well as Castle Island Brewery. They both have their liquor licenses, and they work with food trucks to establish.
They work with food trucks, but they also have a license for food and serve food
Sure.
on the premises, which you do not. I also think the floor plan is deficient in what it's supposed to show us so that we can make a judgment. And I just want to clarify, you show on a plan the outside area, but outside patio, but the application isn't, your application isn't requesting to include that outside dining. Or is it? I'm looking for
I
clarification.
believe the application is looking to include that outside area as well.
Okay, and again, you don't show that.
Okay, we can make any necessary
be-
updates to the floor plan if needed.
Yeah, but you're here, you've applied, and this is what you brought us. All right, thank you.
Mr. Donnelly.
Well, I'm glad things are going well in Norwich, so welcome again.
Thank you.
So you gave us your operating hours. Could you tell me the hours of the, you anticipate you'll be operating the bar room itself, the bar facilities? I assume they'd be different than your operating hours, so you can tell us a little bit about the parameters of the bar room hours.
Sure.
They would be the same.
Same.
The only difference is we would not open at 10 on the weekend for the bar. We would open at noon. But we're an arcade first, and that will offer
Okay.
alcohol.
So on Friday and Saturdays, your operating hours are 10 a.m.?
Yeah, but
To
the
11.
bar would not open at 10.
That's my question.
Yeah.
When would it open?
Noon.
Noon,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. But we would not extend our hours to just serve alcohol, or we wouldn't become like a bar at night or a club or whatever. We're an arcade with a bar.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully.
Now, as you're visualizing folks that are in there and they're taking advantage of the arcade games, we anticipate that they could go to the bar, order a mixed drink or beer or wine, whatever, and then return to play the game, or are you asking them to stay in the bar area?
Yeah.
What are the parameters? that
Yeah,
you
so
have
we currently have a good amount of drink holders, but we're gonna have a lot more for someone who is playing a game. We're gonna do mostly plasticware, plastic cups.
Okay.
Just because our floors are concrete.
Sure.
So we want to avoid as much breakage as possible, and with kids around, we don't want broken glass on the floor. So we're gonna have a majority of either sturdy plastic washable glasses or just plastic cups for people to drink out of.
Is it an actual bar or just a serving bar? I mean, is it a bar?
No, it'll be a bar with.
People will be with
Yeah,
seating?
absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Thank you, those are my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Unley. Yeah, and I have been in the space. My son attended a birthday party there, and I think that you've done a really nice job with the space, and the way that it flows, you can envision where you want to potentially operate this bar. So I think once you're in there, it does make sense from a flow perspective. That's not a real term, but you know what I mean. I think though, and with the other hearings, I will reiterate this too, and we'll deliberate later, but this is the last all alcohol license that the town does have in its possession to give out. So, we want to be really sure that this is the right decision, because I think that with that license, not only becomes a lot of responsibility, which with your experience, I don't think that would be an issue.
Right.
But we would have to talk about sort of the economic impact that license would have at a business such as yours, as opposed to potentially somewhere else. So, that's just letting you know that that's where we're at. But any further questions from board members? No? So we will open up for public comment at this time. Okay, seeing none.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion made by Mr. Donnelly to close the public hearing, seconded by Mr. Sad.
Yep.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous. Great. Can you stick around?
Of course.
Oh, absolutely.
Perfect. Great.
Great. All right.
Thank you so much for being
Okay,
here.
thank you so much, guys.
Okay, so we've got a couple minutes before the next public hearing, and where did we leave off?
4.12.
Yeah.
Do we have the birthday request?
Father Max, yeah.
Yes, okay, item 4.12, park use request, Father Max for a birthday. Submitting request for use of Father Max for a birthday party on July 29th, 2023, from 2 p.m. until 6 p.m. with 40 guests expected. Pleasure of the board.
Make a motion to approve it?
Motion approved made by Mr. Sad, seconded by Ms. Grow. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous. Item 4.13, Carol McClay, appointment to Council on Aging, submitting application for appointment to the Council on Aging for the seat recently vacated by Mr. Mulvihill.
I'll make a motion to approve the appointment of Carolyn McClay to the Council of Aging, and I think it's a great choice.
Second.
Great, motion made by Mr. Donnelly, seconded by Mr. Plasko. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous, and I thank you to Mr. Mulvihill for his representation on the Council on Aging. Okay, a late agenda item came in, item 4.14, Community Preservation Committee appointment of Parks Commission representative to the Community Preservation Committee. It's a pretty good representative, if I don't say so myself.
We commonly refer to the selectmen's
Yes.
representative. Yeah.
Motion made by,
I will make a motion to appoint Mr. Lane
Oh,
as our
okay.
Parks
Alright.
Commissioner representative on the community preservation.
motion made by Mr. Norman, seconded by Mr. Shad. All those in favor?
Good luck.
Can I vote for myself?
Yes, you
All
can.
right.
Okay, great.
Congratulations,
All
Mr.
right.
Lane.
It is now 7:15. We've got a public hearing. Jess, if you would be so kind.
Application has been made to a license for the town of Norwood for an all-alcoholic beverages license for Antonios Romero LLC, DBA Tito Salvadorino, to 514 Washington Street, Norwood, Massachusetts. Lydia Romero, manager of record under section 12, chapter 138, chapter 140 of the Massachusetts General Laws as amended for the sale of all alcoholic beverages. The premises is 514 Washington Street, Norwood, Massachusetts. Description of the premises is as follows. Consists of ground floor space with an area of approximately 1,750 square feet divided into two main rooms, one consisting of an area with tables and seating for eat-in patrons and an open area used for customers waiting for seating or takeout orders and for food preparation, and the other room having food preparation areas, coolers, and storage. Public hearing on this application will be on Tuesday, July 18th, 2023, 7:15 in the Harry B. Better Chambers, room 34, Norwood Town Hall.
Thank you, Jess. Welcome. Greetings, Mr. Hearn.
Good evening.
If you would like to introduce your clients, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, David Hearn Jr. of Gellerman and Cabral at 30 Walpole Street, on behalf of the applicant, which is a limited liability company, Antojitos Romero LLC, which is doing business as Típico Salvadoreño No. 2. With me is the proposed manager, Lydia Romero, seated next to me, and behind me, her husband, Freddie Romero, and another member of the family, Willens Yanis. And they operate a restaurant over here in the location for many years of Soco's, and many of us think of that as the Soco's spot. It is a Salvadoran-type restaurant in terms of the food. They have this is called No. 2 because they have one that they opened some years ago in West Roxbury that's been very successful. So I don't know if other places, chains, keep adding numbers to them, but this one they added No. 2 to the name of this particular restaurant. They've been open a couple of months now, and it's been successful. They're attracting local residents, people from out of town. Willens told me there was somebody from Rhode Island in the other day, and so they're happy with how things are going. They've made application, and I know you've got a crowd applying for this license for the AAB, all alcoholic beverages license, for this location. They hope that with that type of license, they'll attract more customers and be able to serve customers who come in. The restaurant is open from 7 in the morning till 9 at night, so they actually do breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I don't think actually there are too many restaurants around that do all three meals, but they do. And as I think many of us feel that it makes a meal out, particularly if it's dinner or something, a little nicer if you're able to offer people a drink as part of the experience. And that's what they'd like to do. This is a location, as you know, very near to St. Catherine's School and St. Catherine's Church, as well as the United Church across the street. We did send out the required notices, required under the statute, Section 16, about notices to schools, hospitals, and churches. Early in the process, Freddie Romero went and spoke to Father Donahoe, who has I have left off, and I think you may have in your papers a memo from Father Donahoe indicating no objection and his consent on this matter. So that is, we're very grateful for that also. The application, I think, speaks for itself. It describes the property. It describes we've got a floor plan. My clients have experience in running a restaurant. Anybody, if the license is granted, anybody who's involved in the service of alcohol, whether wait staff or pouring or serving staff, will be tip certified, and will take the necessary course and get the necessary certificate. So we're happy to assure you of that, and if necessary, we could file copies with the Selectmen's office for your records. It is as I said, it's a small restaurant, but it is part of their plan, their dream. They, all of them live in Norwood, and are, Freddie and Lydia are raising their family in Norwood, and they have operated in West Roxbury, but now they want to operate this and they are operating this restaurant here in Norwood too. So we're happy to take any questions. Lydia is the proposed manager, and she will be running the Norwood store. It is in the Norwood store now. Freddie is spending most of his time in the West Roxbury store. Williams is back and forth between the two places. And so it's really a family operation. It is something that they're very much committed to, and they hope that you'll be able to look favorably on their application. As I said, Lydia is the manager, but she spoke to me before the meeting that Freddie is really the spokesman on this. So you want me to direct the questions to Freddie more than to you, but she can certainly tell you about it also. We've given out a copy of the menu that they have, and Mr. Pelletier, I'll give you the spare one when I'm done, but I need my prop here.
Great.
And so that's it, Mr. Chairman. I think we'll happy to take any questions, respond to any comments.
Thank you, Mr. Harrington. Thank you for being here. We'll open it up to the board now for questions or comments, discussion.
No comments here.
Mr. Sadie, you're good?
Good.
Mr. Grove? All right, Mr. Plasko?
I think maybe just one. Looking at your floor plan, I'm not sure where the service of the alcoholic beverages will be. I'm assuming you're going to tell me at the tables only, as Father Donahue had indicated he would be in favor of.
Service will be, right, there's no, if there's takeout customers, they're not going to be served alcohol.
Right.
Service will be to customers who are seated in the tables, at the tables.
And there's no actual bar or anything? I
No.
see none, I'm just
No.
stating it for the record. And your seating capacity is 16.
That's correct.
And that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Plasko. Mr. Donnelly?
A very nice menu. I was in the store the other day and grabbed a menu, and I look forward to ordering soon. So I want to just, I know you have a facility, a restaurant in West Roxbury, I believe? So is that a service restaurant from an alcohol beverage, is beer, wine? So is there any experience in the ownership running a facility that has a full liquor license, or would this be the first time?
This is really the first time they would be running that. They've had experience in the restaurant business. Did you have any experience in the place that serves alcohol? So this is the first time you're going to start somewhere, of course. And
Sure.
Their plan to be, if they get the license, very careful. As I said, everybody would be tip certified, anybody dealing with the customers, with alcohol and so forth. And they certainly understand the importance of following the rules. And making sure that any public license, you've got to make sure you follow the rules.
So every day, operating hours are starting as early as 7 a.m. and end at 9 p.m. How would the hours of operation for the alcoholic beverages work? Where would they be defined as?
We want to be able to offer it for lunch through dinner. So say 11 o'clock or so until 9 p.m.
9 p.m.
Not at breakfast.
Okay. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. So I had a question along the lines of what Mr. Donnelly was talking about. How long has the West Roxbury location been in operation?
About 4 years.
4 years.
Yep.
And how long have you been in operation here? It was mentioned earlier.
About 2 months.
2 months.
They spent a bit of time redoing the place. They've had the lease for a while.
Right.
And, but had to do a lot of refitting of the space,
Great.
equipment and all that.
We appreciate it, and it's great to, it sounds like you're very successful, and to expand and open up here, that's great. Just wondering why perhaps you didn't try for an alcohol license at the West Roxbury location that had been established, that set place, and there's no right or wrong answer, just was interested to hear from you.
I do have only 2 tables, and I do have a daycare next to me. That's the reason.
Okay, that's great. That's a good answer.
It doesn't really lend itself to
No,
a
small
license.
and next to daycare, yeah, I can appreciate that. I don't have any additional questions, no more questions from the rest of the board, so we would open it up to public comment at this time. Okay, seeing none, the pleasure of the board.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing made by Mr. Donnelly, seconded by Ms. Grove. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Great. So if you want to stick around, if that's great. So there's one other applicant for the same license. We'll hear them in a few minutes, but I imagine around 7:45 we would take a vote.
I'll
Great.
certainly be around, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
They know they have the option, but I'll.
Okay,
I
great,
plan to
thank
be
you. Thank you
here.
for being here, and thanks for being in Norwood. That's great, we appreciate it.
Thank
Best
you
of
for your
luck.
time tonight. Night to you, for now.
Okay. I feel like we should have an intermission.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Let's get back to knock a few of these out.
Maybe go through the...
Well, the zoning board of appeals associate appointments, we'll save that for after the public hearing. Item 4.16, appointment of election officers, submitting from town clerk Mary Lou Folin. I'd say more on this, but my computer is not working at the moment.
Make a motion to approve the appointment of election officials as indicated on Town Clerk Folin's memorandum.
Second.
Motion to approve the recommendation from the town clerk, Mary Lou Folin, made by Ms. Donnelly, seconded by Mr. Plasko. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous. Great. Item 4.17, cemetery deeds for signature of the board. Pleasure of the board.
Board sign?
Motion for signature made by Mr. Plasko, seconded by Ms. Grow. All those in favor? Chair votes aye, unanimous. Item 4.18, town-owned Washington Street properties. We'll table that until a little bit later. Item 4.19, Massachusetts Water Resource Authority loan, MWRA water bond for approval and signature of the board. Mr. Donnelly.
I'll make a motion to approve the authority loan. I think this is a loan program that we participate in for a number of years to deal with I&I work that's being done around Norwood. So I make a motion to approve the authority loan.
Motion to approve and sign made by Mr. Donnelly, seconded by Mr. Plasko. On the motion?
I was just going to say, in this vote, because it has to do with some legal bonding and so forth, I think we need to
Read it out.
at least reference the vote that we all have copies of and have read, submitted by the treasurer for our review, and probably should at least read for public consumption the middle section where it says voted that the sale of $629,600 water bond of the town dated August 14, 2023 to Massachusetts Water Resource Authority is hereby approved, and the town treasurer or other appropriate town officials is authorized to execute on behalf of the town a loan agreement and a financial assistance agreement with the authority with respect to the bond. The bond shall be payable without interest on August 15th of the years and in the principal amounts as follows. The years are stated here from 2024 to 2033, all in the same amount of installment payment, $62,960. And then it should be scribed in our minutes, the formal motion submitted by the treasurer to us, assuming the board approves.
Can we take that as a motion?
I will second Mr. Plasko's motion.
Motion made by Mr. Plasko, seconded by Mr. Donnelly. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous. Great. Okay. And we'll save the town meeting dates for discussion, because it is, do you have 7:30, just about?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Okay, it is 7:30. Jess, if you would not mind reading.
Application has been made to the licensing board of the town of Norway for an all-alcoholic beverages license for Pietro Empanadas to King's DBA Pietro Empanadas to 111 Lennox Street, Norway, Massachusetts. Manager of record under section 12, chapter 138 and 140 of the Massachusetts General Laws as amended for the sale of all alcoholic beverages to be drunk on the premises at 111 Lennox Street, Norway, Massachusetts. Description of premises as follows: 1,750 square feet of space on one floor with lobby, counters, kitchen, office, and work area. There is seating capacity for 24, one exit and one entrance. Public hearing on this application will be held on Tuesday, July 18th, 2023 at 7:30 p.m. in the Carnegie Meadows Chambers, room 34, Norway Town Hall.
Great, thank you, Jess. Welcome. If you could introduce yourself, and then the floor is yours to tell us a little about yourselves and your business, and then we'll open it up for questions from the rest of the board. Great.
My name is Jose Pimentel. I'm owner of the Prieto Empanadas 2 in Norwood.
Welcome, Jose. Great. Tell us a little bit about your business.
My business is a restaurant, the fast food restaurant. The open is the 5 months. It's a good place.
Yeah, how's business going?
It's good.
Good?
Yes.
Good. Have you run any prior businesses related with an alcohol license?
No.
Okay, great. And if you could tell us a little bit about why you are applying for this license.
Dile que yo quiero aplicar para la licencia porque para introducirle algo nuevo al negocio.
So my name is Amalia Dume. I'm his accountant.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So we're here today because he said he would like to improve his business. He's thinking that if he can have the license to sell, just to take out or to take some beers and with takeout food. And many people start to ask, so if he has beer or wine. So he said that the business could be better.
O sea, que la gente se sienta a tomar, a comer,
So,
una cerveza,
so his customer get a seat and to see the game, the baseball game.
Conversar.
Yeah, to talk, and they order some empanadas, some stuffy with chicken.
Great. Perfect, great. So Jose, what we'll do now is we'll open it up to the rest of the board for questions. And just, through interpretation, just try your best to answer them. If there's something that you don't understand, definitely let us know.
Thank you.
This should be a cordial, good meeting. So.
Thank you.
So we'll open it up to the board for questions or comments.
No comments.
Mr. Sad, none. Ms. Grow?
No questions either.
Okay, Mr. Blasco.
I just have, I guess it's more a question than a comment, and that it appears that the application is incomplete in that description of the premises is very, very vague. And as it indicates here on the application, you must submit a floor plan, and there is no floor plan submitted. That would show us the seating, where the product is going to be, alcohol product's going to be sold from, stored, and so on and so forth. And none of that's been submitted. So I'm just noting that deficiency in the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blasco.
So we submitted all the information as far as I know, the full plan. So if you need something in additional days, or we need to do any corrections, so we can do it.
Yeah,
So
but we
that's
couldn't
not a
even think about approving it without not having that information.
Mhm.
And when we approve a plan, you or anyone else, when we approve a license with that plan, technically it shouldn't even be issued until we go out and see that what you're opening is what you told us it was going to be. But we can't do that if you haven't even submitted it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. El floor plan, dice que no está completo el floor plan.
Mr. Donnelly?
You know, I do think there's a plan, a floor plan in the document. But what I don't see in the floor plan is
There's
a
There's a
location.
plan of the location of the building in the complex, but not of the
Oh.
floor plan. Do you have it? I haven't seen it.
Yeah. It's on
Okay, there's a lot of
page
papers here. I've got them
31
a
of
few
the,
times.
of the 31 of the
31,
application, yeah.
thank you.
Buried in there somewhere.
Thank you for the
But
clarification.
No problem. My question on the floor plan, though, is I'm familiar with the restaurant, they're very good empanadas, thank you. So when a moment ago, you were talking about getting feedback from customers in terms of the opportunity to have beer and wine. You do know that this license, in addition to beer and wine, would allow you to serve all alcohol beverages, so mixed drinks as well as beer and wine? You do realize that? Okay. With that, so you have the counter space there where you have your very nice empanadas on display. Where would one, if I were to come into the restaurant, where would I go to order a mixed drink, for example? Where would you position that in the restaurant, in the counter area?
Okay, just let me explain to him.
Yeah, okay.
Él dice que cuando él vaya a ordenar vino o cerveza, ¿a dónde le tiene que dirigir? ¿Cómo le va a poder ordenar?
Dile que ahí hay mesas.
¿Tiene menú o no tiene menú?
No, todavía no hay nada en el menú. No hay nada atrás.
That's okay.
Si calificamos, uno tiene que preparar un menú nuevo.
So he said that the person should go to the accountant to order, and should also show the license that has the authorization to drink inside. So because he doesn't going to sell for younger than than the law said. So the person have to go to the counter to order the beer or wine, but they're gonna request the ID.
Okay.
Check to verify that they can drink inside.
But it looks like you're going to have to give up some of your existing counter space to store the items needed for mixed drinks in particular, as well as the beer and wine.
Right.
And your operating hours, so you are open for breakfast empanadas today, right? I think, what are how early in the day are you open for breakfast now?
Ahora mismo, ¿a qué hora está abriendo para desayunos y comida?
A las 10 de la mañana estoy
¿Y
abriendo.
hasta qué hora?
Hasta las 9 de la noche.
Open 10 a.m. to 9 p.m.
O
Okay.
sea, que si me dan la licencia, nosotros-
And would it be the restaurant's intent to start serving beer and wine and all alcohol beverages as early as 10 a.m.? Or are you going to have different hours for the beer, wine, and the liquor?
So dice que se va a tener una hora específica para vender bebidas. Si después de las 12 o de la mañana o desde que abra.
Como ellos me lo autoricen, o sea, y que si ellos me autorizan la licencia, yo puedo modificar el horario. Y como ellos lo autoricen, a qué hora yo puedo empezar a vender.
So he said that if the license get approved, you can say at what time he can have the service, at what time he can have available the time to sell the beers or wine.
Okay.
Because normally many people order a beer for example, in the lunch time. Sometimes in the dinner they order some beer and wine. But if you request, that should be, for example, that you're gonna set that will be service, between 12 to, for example, 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. So
Depende, a la hora que yo
it
me dé.
depends.
It's flexible.
Yeah, it's flexible.
Right.
Right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I think I had a question, Attorney Duca, just about the location of the operation. I know that's sort of it's not a strip mall, but that section over there. Are there any types of restrictions for hours of operation or serving liquor in that section?
No, but in chapter 138 there is.
Okay.
There's minimum hours.
Yeah, the license can't be less than certain hours. That is less than 11 p.m., I think is the hours of operation that would be permitted. They can voluntarily change that.
Yeah.
But you can't impose that. From a zoning standpoint, I think all you've heard tonight, is appropriate from a zoning standpoint.
Okay.
I don't think I'll defer to. General business. Yeah, it's all general business, so There's,
General central business.
right, so the restaurant use is appropriate. There's no, zoning doesn't speak directly to the service of alcohol.
Okay. Great, thank you. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
I don't have any further specific questions for you, but just reiterating that this license is the last all-alcohol license for the town. There's different types of licenses that become available at different times. Beer and wine, all alcohol, as Mr. Donnelly said, included cocktails, spirits, those types of things. So
Okay,
just
okay.
letting you know this is the last one.
Right.
So, pending no further comment or questions from the board, I'll open it up for public comment. Hearing no public comment, pleasure of the board.
Motion to close the hearing.
Motion to
Public
close the hearing made by Mr. Donnelly, seconded by Ms. Grow. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous. Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Want everybody back in?
Well, let me poll the board first and see what the board would like to do. We do not have to vote tonight if we don't feel we want to as a board. Mr. Sad?
I'd like to make a motion, we table this for 2 weeks so we can make site visits. This is a lot of sites to visit, and maybe to see what size and shape these things are, as Bill says, so we can get an idea of what we're approving. Just my thought.
Okay. On the motion, Mr. Plasko?
I wouldn't have a problem with accommodating my colleague, but I personally don't need it. I'm familiar with all three of them to that degree. But we do need to be careful on the time frame, don't we not, Mr. Duca?
I'm not sure when each of these applications were made, but I do think there's at least a 30-day limit, right?
The 30 days from their application or from our hearing tonight?
Yeah, I would say from the hearing, from the date of hearing, but, you know, I'd certainly want the board to stay clear of any issues with time, for sure.
All right.
Okay. Anything further on Mr. Sad's motion?
Mr. Sad, would there be enough time? We have a meeting next week.
On the
The
25th?
chairman agreed and we added it to that agenda,
Sure.
so that we don't stretch it out too long here and
Yep.
stay within our timeframes.
It'll give us time to take a look and see where they are and what they're located, and just go from there. That's my take.
Okay.
I would second Mr. Sad's motion because I'm very intimately familiar with two of the sites, but the third one I've only seen digitally, and I'd like to get a chance to physically go in. And I should be able to pull that off with that amount of time if we were to try to put it on the next meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Lane?
Yes, Mr. Donnelly.
So, I do understand the rationale and the objective. Personally, I'm ready to vote this evening, and I will just kind of just put my 2 cents out there right now that the document that Jess provided that gives us the listing of the 29 establishments that currently have an all-alcohol beverage license, and realizing to Mr. Lane's point that this is the last remaining one, you know, when we look at that list provided, it's the 3 applicants this evening do not seem to be consistent with the approvals that we've given in the past. When I look at this list, I'm seeing very, very much a theme that most of our license holders for all alcoholic beverages are relatively large restaurants with large seating capacity, whether it's Lewis's, Biblo's, Bertucci's, all the downtown restaurants, many of them, as well as some event space such as Little Bird Events and the Irish Brewing Company and Country Club of Norwood and the Skating Club. I'm fine with waiting, but I think I'll go on record this evening to say that regardless of what might be seen by reviewing these, I'm just a little hesitant to approve any of them, being that this is the last one, and that we are, if we have an applicant that is more like the ones that we have approved in the past, where it's a large restaurateur or whatever, we will not have the capacity to issue a license to an applicant who is more similar to the ones that we've approved in our previous 29 license approvals. But I will yield to the will of the board on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Yeah, I think for me too, if there are members who aren't prepared to vote tonight, I don't want to force the vote. So, it does look like we would probably table this until next week, so you can be comfortable voting. I don't want to make either of you uncomfortable voting. I think with this being the last all alcohol license, we have to be careful and make sure that we feel good about the decision that we're making. As Mr. Donnelly stated, typically those all alcohol licenses are real kind of economic drivers. And we've had to make difficult decisions in the past. This is a difficult decision as well, because there are 3 applicants and we want to see those businesses do well. But at the same time, if we hand this out and we don't feel good about it, or if it doesn't work out, we're kind of handcuffing ourselves. I think in terms of the individual locations, the size of them is difficult for me to award one of these to a restaurant that only has a seating capacity of, is it 16, I believe?
The minimum 16.
And again, it's not the fault of the restaurant, that's where they're operating, that's the size of it. In terms of the arcade, they've come in and they've done well. The business is up and running, it's a very new business. It's a new type of business to Norwood. Potentially, a wine and beer license would be more appropriate. There aren't any available, so it's very, I understand why they're going for this one, because it's the one that's available. So, without having repeating myself, I would have been comfortable taking a vote tonight, but I will. Do we have a second on the motion to table the vote until next week?
That was the second.
Okay, Mr. Sad made a motion to table this vote until next week.
Yeah, that's fine.
Seconded by Ms. Crowe.
Just actually, and somewhat of the mind of the last 2 speakers, I don't think that in either of these licenses, any of these 3 licenses, really meets sufficiently a public need within the area, or a proper use for the licenses, for the public good, as much as we can make them available and service the public as much as well as possible with the licenses that are available. And one applicant, in my opinion, the arcade, doesn't serve food. We've never issued a license to a place without food. We've had Castle Island and the Irish Pub come in without food, and they changed and got their food licenses, and they at least carry the minimum, so that there is food available with the alcoholic beverages and so forth, and we've gone through that whole exercise. I don't think the plan, again, was sufficient to show us what their intent is down there, as far as where the seats would be and where the product would be stored and so on and so forth. So I don't know that I could support that one either, even though it is slightly different than the other 2 in the type of operation. So I generally am of the opinion that tonight I wouldn't have wanted to vote for any of them.
In light of that, I haven't got a problem if you, I'll withdraw my motion, and if Amanda wants to withdraw hers, we'll just vote.
The only thing I was going to ask about was, I wanted to get a sense, because for me, I travel a lot, I deal in gaming, these aren't the types of games that I make, but as a halo, I end up in a lot of these types of facilities in other states, Seattle, California, a lot of different places. So I was curious what the experience has been with other members of the board in these types of establishments, because the ones that I've been to out of state often do have cocktails. They usually have themed cocktails that are all relevant to the types of, retro video games, or, they might have like a Mortal Kombat Scorpion Bowl, or, themed things like that. That's the typical use of the mixed drinks in these types of establishments. So I didn't know if anyone had any kind of engagement with these types of facilities before, and the types of patrons, the types of patronage that ends up happening at them.
The closest thing that I have any familiarity with at all is like, what do they call it, Dave and Buster's or something, places like that. And I know many of the communities do have alcoholic licenses. My personal comments weren't against necessarily that type of establishment, because I noted it was different than those two restaurants. But I just think it has other deficiencies.
But I did want to, the only thing I wanted to put forward was the concept of, I have seen these establishments as all alcohol,
Sure.
no food. This is the manner that they tend to do it. If that wasn't something people were aware of, I just wanted to make sure that
It's
information was available.
I think it's a tavern license, and we haven't issued tavern licenses in Norwood to date. I'm not sure if we have to do a particular acceptance or not, but I know we never have.
Right, well,
At
we
least
have,
not in recent memory of my time.
yeah, we have restaurant licenses.
Yes.
And they generally require the for service of food,
Okay,
yeah. A CV.
right. Okay,
I'll
we
withdraw
can
my
strike your
motion.
motion if you,
Yeah.
if that's
I'm
what
prepared.
you think. So then I'll probably speak a little bit more. I understand what you're saying. I have visited some of these other places. I think I like the idea of the arcade, and I know that maybe there were a few deficiencies with the application, but I think there were some deficiencies with the other applications as well, to be fair. I think the reason I would agree with not awarding any licenses this evening is because of the scarcity, I think, of this particular license. I'm not against any of these entities having alcohol. I think probably the restaurants and probably the arcade are a beer and wine would be more appropriate. Again, there aren't any available. So I don't think it's necessarily the concept or that business is what they're trying to do. I think it really comes down to the scarcity of this being the last license. With that, Mr. DeLuca, if there's no vote taken, what does that mean for the applicants?
No, we need to take a vote.
Sorry, if the vote is a no, that's what I mean. If we don't award a license to any of the three entities.
Yeah, that does not foreclose the possibility of an application at a different time when those conditions change. That is the availability of licenses. There could also, at some point in time, be a request for a transfer of a specific license that you can consider. But there, it is the prerogative and the discretion of the board to determine whether or not the award of a license available at this time is in accordance with public need and the common good. That's the parameters that you have, and we've already discussed the details of each of the applications, the pros and cons. But ultimately, it is the discretion of the board, and it does not foreclose an applicant from coming back at some later time under different circumstances.
And timeline-wise,
There's no prohibition. If something were to come available in the next day, several days, or several weeks, they certainly can come back with a new application. And obviously, we would urge every applicant to make sure that the applications are complete and ready for consideration by the board.
thank you, Mr. Plasko.
The other thing I would add is if we vote to deny, there is an appeal.
Oh, yes.
So when we take any such vote, I think it should, for your advice,
Yep.
but my thought is that each one would have to be separate, stating clearly the reason, because that's what they would be appealing on, and any strength we would have to defend that at the ABCC would be
Correct.
the strength of our vote.
Yeah, there is the right of appeal on a denial, and it would be heard by the ABCC, who would, consider the merits of the request. They don't have the ability, the ABCC, to issue a license. They only have the ability to remand if they find that for some reason that the decision was faulty in some way or another. They would remand to the board with some instructions. And, it's the board's discretion to find the reasoning, which I think is less about whether or not it's the last one or the only availability, but instead the merits of each application, pros and cons, something that either was missing or not, for your consideration, that is public need and common good.
Thank you, Mr. Luca.
Sure.
So the fact that it's the last one,
Is less, I think, a lesser concern for the board than the actual merits of each of those applications.
great. Okay. So we should do these individually, I'm assuming.
Just one question.
Yes, Mr. Donnelly?
So, Mr. DeLuca, you may have addressed this. In the event that an applicant is denied this evening and feels that perhaps a new or revised application would be more relevant or updated, do they have the opportunity to reapply?
I don't see anything in the statute that would prevent that. Obviously, if you were to receive a new application, I would urge you to consider that on the same basis as any other application that was timely submitted. And again, consider it on the merits at the time that it's heard.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further from the board? Great. Well, thank you, Mr. DeLuca.
Okay.
I think in light of Mr. DeLuca and what he said, with it being less about the scarcity of the license and more about the public good, or in this case, we don't have an arcade that serves alcohol, and I think it's sort of trending that way nationally, that those places are becoming more popular. I would vote for this. So, that being said, do we have a motion here?
Are we looking specifically at the first applicant?
Yeah, we'll just take them in order. So, motion to approve the all alcohol license for the Hometown Arcade.
I'd make a motion to deny it
Motion to deny.
on the grounds that it does not, after public hearing, licensing authority does not deem it reasonable, that it provides a specific public need or good, that the application as submitted was deficient in description of floor plan and description of the proposed operation, business alcohol operation, and what was the other one? Oh, and the lack of food to be served on the premises, as the town has not granted such tavern licenses in the past, and do not see, again, the public good to do so at this time.
Okay, motion to deny made by Mr. Plasko, seconded by Mr. Sad. All those in agreement?
On the motion to deny?
Yeah.
On the other hand of the things I said, while I did describe the nature of how people have tended to set these businesses up, I would agree with Mr. Plasko that there have been some deficiencies in procedure. And so if they want to reapply and they get all their i's and t's crossed, I'd be in favor, but right now I would not be in favor based on the things that are missing that we need. We need to see more of a floor plan, and we need to make sure that they're appropriately licensing around food. So I'd also be in favor, and I just wanted to make sure that I stated that portion of my input on that applicant.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Crowe. Sorry. In the spirit of uniformity, I mean, I can see which way it's going, so I would personally feel the same way, Ms. Crowe, and that perhaps we can give them another chance with the new application. So, motion tonight made by Mr. Plasko, seconded by Mr. Sad. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous. Great. Okay. With regard to Tipico Salvadorino 2, pleasure of the board.
Make a motion to deny on the grounds that after public hearing, not feel that a sufficient public need or good would be provided by the establishment by the issuance of this license, and therefore determined that it's not appropriate to be issued at this time to this applicant.
Motion to deny made by Mr. Plasko, seconded by
I'll
Mr.
second the
Donnelly.
motion.
On the motion? All those in favor of denying the application for an all-alcohol beverages license? Say aye. Chair votes aye, unanimous. And finally, the application for all-alcohol beverages license for Prieto Empanada. Pleasure of the board.
I'll make a motion to deny this as well. I do not believe that the application was descriptive enough to give us confidence that we are serving the public good, public need, or the common good in granting this license. Motion to deny.
Second.
Motion to deny made by Mr. Donnelly, seconded by Mr. Plasko. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Luke. Appreciate it. Okay, going back, we will, and Mr. Pelletier, sorry, I didn't recognize you earlier. Thank you, Mr. Pelletier, for being here. We appreciate it.
Yeah, move this wall.
As
I move this wall.
Oh,
Good job, thank
Yeah,
you.
Mr. Alden, the hallway.
Yeah,
Do you need the building inspector for anything else? I think we're
I believe
good.
so.
Thank you.
We're good. Okay, item 4.1?
I know.
Do
Yes.
you want me to bring them in or have them?
Yeah. Oh, they're good. We're all set. Thank you, Mr. Hearn. 4.1, that is you. Jess, if you would not mind.
The public hearing has been closed, so.
Yeah, it's just taking it up as board business.
All right. So you don't, you get out of reading.
Thank you.
All right, great. Okay. Thank you. Public hearing has been closed for the previous meeting. Application for the licensing board of the town of Norwood for transfer of the retail wine and malt beverage packaged goods store license and change of location from Marahi Inc., doing business as Convenient Food Mart, to Fuel Source DBA Norwood Sitco, manager of record George Saba, under Section 15, Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Law as amended for the sale of wine and malt beverages not to be drunk on the premises of 960 Boston Providence Turnpike, Norwood. Okay, so we had a 2-2 vote last time.
Yes, sir.
And in the case of that, are we allowed to deliberate again?
Yes, we
And-
have, no decision's been made, no license has been issued, but it's still up there if the board chooses to go forward and issue one. So I think personally we should, now that we have a full board, take a vote. If nobody abstains, we'll either approve or deny the license.
Great. Hey, don't do that. Okay, as I wasn't here last meeting, I was in Minnesota for work. I'd be happy to speak and give my points, but if anyone else wants to speak as a continuation of last meeting, feel free.
I just want to be sure, Matt, if I could, that, you know, according to the Mullen Rule, that you were able to familiarize yourself with all of the testimony that was evident at the last hearing, and that you prepared yourself and qualified to vote at this time.
Yes,
Yeah.
Attorney Kuka. And in terms of the history of the applicants,
Yeah,
made, re-familiarized myself.
Okay.
Yeah. And voted on the minutes earlier, too.
okay.
Great. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, do you feel the need for us to reiterate any of our prior votes this evening? To provide any more info? Do you have sufficient information?
I have sufficient information. I sort of will probably give my spiel, and feel free to comment and have a discussion, and we'll take a vote. And if there's anything factually that I misspeak, just let me know. But I'm going to go back a little bit in history. So, April of 2022, we had an applicant. The address, I had these written down. 515 Boston Providence Highway, and that is the Sunoco. North Sunoco. So they came before us, the applicant asking for a beer and wine license. We did not give them one. We took a vote, 3-1 with one abstention. I was one of the no votes, and at the time we had talked about this being the last beer and wine, convenient beer and wine license available, and that we wanted to be extra careful about the location of where we would award this. And we felt at the time, particularly on that route of Route 1 going north to south, there were a few other options in proximity that sort of were repetitive. That's the best word I can come up with. That, you know, you had that same option a little bit further north, a little bit further south on the same side of Route 1. Subsequently, 2 months later, the applicant for the beer and wine that we denied in April, Mr. Patel put forth an application, and he was awarded that license because we felt that the location was a better fit. It was on Washington Street in South Norwood, where there weren't as many options as there were for the Sunoco. Does that make sense so far?
Yep.
Okay, great. So Mr. Patel, a few months ago, came forward. So he was awarded the beer and wine and successfully operated for a period of time, and then we ended up awarding him the full alcohol license. Sorry, that's not the correct name. Right. So all alcohol beverages, and that was from the business on Route 1, DBA.
Wine and Market, is it?
Wine and Market, that never opened up. So if you recall that conversation, you know, it was through no fault of Mr. Patel's. It was a little upsetting that that entity, who we had awarded a license to previously, never opened up, and were able to sell that license to Mr. Patel, who was in operation with his beer and wine and wanted to expand. You know, ultimately, we voted to approve that transfer, and because Mr. Patel has a beer and wine, he can't have both at the same time. So he needed to find a buyer or hand it back in. You know, his two options were to sell it to another entity or hand it back into the town. Obviously, because he's paying a fair amount of money for the all alcohol, it's in his best interest to find a buyer. And that's where we're at with the Citgo. Correct, right?
So far, so good.
Okay, good. At least I'm proving that I did my homework. For me personally, and this is where we could maybe have a little more of a discussion, it comes back to, do we feel like the Citgo is a good fit for the beer and wine that Mr. Patel is looking to transfer so that he can accept the all alcohol? And that was the 2-2 vote. And so for me personally, I had to think about several things. So one of which would be, I believe Mr. Patel understands that we were looking for somewhere perhaps different in the vicinity of that area on Dean Street in Route 1 to award a beer and wine, because that's what we did with him. You know, Sunoco didn't get it, Mr. Patel got it. But the thing that I kept kind of going back to was that, you know, he was looking for a buyer because he wanted to get something out of the deal in terms of he's paying a lot of money for this all alcohol, he's got to get rid of the beer and wine, or he turns it in, doesn't, you know, get anything. So it's in his best interest to find a buyer. And through conversations, I learned he did. He did reach out, and I'm having a hard time penalizing him. Again, that's my word, because the Citgo is the buyer for him, you know, and their location. Because if you strictly look at the location, you know, there can be an argument made for it's kind of in that same area where months earlier we said, we wanted to try to find a better location for these licenses. But ultimately, it's up to that person, Mr. Patel, to find that entity. And he's running out of time, or he was running out of time, because the state doesn't give you all day to do this. So even though I don't love the location, because it's really in, there's the Yankee Spirits, there's the Mobile across the street. There was the Citco, there was the Sunoco that we denied. There's the Cravings on the Go a little bit further up there. There are options for people. It's hard for me to deny this because of the fact, this is a buyer for him, and I think that I can square it in terms of, if you're going north to south on Route 1, you could stop at Cravings to Go to fill up, get gas, get some beer and wine if you want. You could stop at the Mobile, which is 2 minutes down the road. To make that turnaround and do the same thing going south to north, it's not the easiest turn. So I don't know if it's the same. I don't consider it apples to apples with the Sunoco the way that I did with the Citgo. I think they're different, even though they're in proximity to each other. I think that predominantly you're going to have people going south to north on that side of Route 1, stop at that Citgo, gas up, and get the beer and wine if that's what they're looking to do. Even if you wanted to go to the Mobile, it's not easy from going south to north. So, yeah. I probably should have had a visual or a map up there. That being said, I personally would be in favor of this. I feel like Mr. Patel did his due diligence to find a buyer. I would rather have him have found a buyer potentially closer to Washington Street, where we originally awarded his beer and wine. That's not the case. I think there's a difference enough of location that I can be okay with this. I don't feel like I'm completely contradicting myself from my vote in April of 2022. Other people may feel otherwise, but that's where I'm at. That was long-winded, I'm sorry.
Well, go ahead, Bill.
Mr. Seth?
Mike, I wasn't on the board at that time. I recused myself from the community food market getting the full liquor license. I just have a problem, Mr. Chairman, of people selling these licenses, coming to Westlake tonight. If one of those three had gotten a license, next week selling it for 50 or 100 grand, that's a premium piece of money the taxpayers are getting shortchanged from. We have fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers and the citizens of Norwood who give us the responsibility to pass out these as the liquor license authority. And I'm not sure if we can make a motion on this, just for FYI, point information. Could we have a liquor license and put on, if they don't open or they go bankrupt, that has to be turned, a condition back to the town of Norwood?
There is a provision in the law that if a license is not active, then it needs to be returned to the town. Now, there's case law on what that means, and generally it means that a license holder is afforded approximately 6 months in order to seek out a transfer of a license, and it's pretty strictly construed. You need to have a hearing, it's essentially a show cause hearing why a license has not been active, and then you start the clock ticking for 6 months, and if 6 months go by and you receive no further information and no request for a transfer, then the license may be revoked. But yes, it is the intention of the statute that a license, once awarded, that it become active.
But my own contention is this was never opened, this liquor store, maybe just a little bit, out in Route 1.
Yeah,
So
for
that's
sure.
my contention.
I had the same,
That license is before us tonight, though.
No, I know that. Now it's a second one.
Right.
And I just,
I know you recused yourself. If you go back and watch, I said the same things that you're saying. I had a real problem with it too,
Yeah.
because this entity that never opened up, and in good faith, we gave them this all alcohol license, in turn, sold it.
you could have gave it tonight to one of these. But I just have a real bad problem with it.
Yeah.
And I just think that it's wrong for the taxpayers to foot the bill while these people are selling these liquor licenses like Bitcoin, because it happened in Belmont. My uncle used to live up there, and they got a first liquor license, and they sold it an hour later, Stop and Shop, for $400,000. It becomes a real tyrant problem.
Yeah, it makes me uncomfortable too,
Yeah.
Mike. I feel the same
All
way.
right.
I think, we definitely spoke about that when we awarded the all alcohol to Mr. Patel.
Mm.
And, he was willing to pay that amount for it. And so back to what I was saying, I'd like to see him sell the beer and wine and offset some of that. And he found a buyer. It's not in an ideal location in terms of where we would really want it to be, but, potentially, there's no other buyers, so that, there are all these things that are sort of tied together, but it stems originally from something that I was not comfortable with either.
Yep, I just feel bad that we gave him a full liquor license and we're getting nothing in return.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Plasko, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just, I guess, going to reiterate for the record, basically, statement I made at the last meeting. I made a motion to deny that after the public hearing and considering the application, that, in my opinion, as a member of this licensing authority, that this application does not serve, again, a public need or good that's not already served. The community is well served as having a choice to buy these type of alcoholic beverages. And this geographical section of the town, there is the gas station across the street, and even though you point out about turning around and so forth, it's one block, one building away from, about a 20,000 square foot full-service liquor store and Yankee Spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And so if anybody wants to pull in this gas station and needs to pick up liquor that bad, it's only another minute or two for them to drive next door and pick it up. And therefore, I just don't see the need. I think it's too many locations in one area is not good for a community, and this is monopolizing this intersection pretty well with liquor licenses, and I just don't think that serves a public good in any way. And with all due respect to your comment, and I know you're trying to be fair and concerned about individuals and their businesses, but we're not penalizing the gentleman trying to sell this license. He can sell it to someone else. Our responsibility is whether or not this is a proper location and individual to be receiving the license and operating. And that I find is not the case, and that's why I'm in the motion to deny the license.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, Mr. Donnelly.
I didn't really get to speak to my vote last time. So, in my estimation, after being on the board now for a year and seeing several applications come before us, I think the bottom line for me in support of this license is that the location is not adjacent to a sensitive facility, a church, or a daycare center, or a hospital. It is right on our main commercial district, if you will, from town, the Boston Providence district, where there are many similarly situated commercial properties that do maintain such businesses with licenses for beer and wine. The other part of this that's unclear to me as to what we would advise Mr. Saba, not that it's our obligation to do this, but it's unclear to me going forward, well, where would he locate his business? If he were to be 50 yards down the road, 1 mile down the road, on Route 1, would that make a difference? And to me, it's unclear that the standard of it's too many in one spot I just see that as a diminishing argument for me. It's clearly a major district, several miles long, on Route 1, plenty of traffic, plenty of opportunity for businesses. I do feel that denying the license also puts us in a position as, and I don't really think we want to be in this position, that we are the arbiters of, who are the economic winners and losers in this process. He has a owner of a license. The owner would like to transfer the license. His paperwork is in order. He has established a business that has been here for several years. I think the location is not near any sensitive facilities. The district is right. I feel that my vote was justified based on that rationale, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shalley. Any further comment? Mr. Plasto?
Thank you. I just want to point out, the economic winners and losers, that's not really up to us either. It's how it may turn out, but that's not what our focus is. Our focus is the procedures, the laws, what is in our, what we deem as a licensing authority to be appropriate use of these licenses. I point out that the 138 says that the local licensing authority may accept the surrender of the license and issue in its place thereof the same to the same licensee any other form of license authorized within the law, and may allow as a credit, therefore, the fee that they've already paid for the license they currently have, but in no case that is surrendered, but no refund shall be authorized. So it's anticipated all along that if somebody's trying to switch over, they'll surrender their license. The ABCC has sent us back. They have not approved that transfer because they can't because of the section.
Okay.
And they are waiting, if they sell it, that's okay because they don't have two licenses.
Sure.
But the point is you can't have two licenses, so if you wanted it bad enough, you had to know ahead of time you're willing to surrender the license you already had.
Or find a buyer.
Or find a buyer quick,
Yeah, yeah.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, since we're in the, in the realm of reading some biblical language here, Section 23 of Chapter 138 says the provisions for the issue of licenses and permits hereunder imply no intention to create rights generally for persons to engage or continue in the transaction of business authorized by the licenses or permits respectively, but are enacted with a view only to serve the public need and in such manner to protect the common good, and to that end provide, in the opinion of the licensing authorities, adequate number of places at which the public may obtain, in the manner and for the kind of use indicated, the different sorts of beverages for sale of which provision is made. There was a point made earlier about competition. There is a difference, although it's a minor, a difference perhaps without a distinction, but there's a difference between competition and saturation. The statute goes to saturation. It does not go to competition. We're not here to protect competitive interests, I think, but instead to again, protect against saturation, which goes to the language and for licensing authorities to create an adequate number of places at which the public may obtain the beverages.
Thank you, Mr. Luca. Ms. Grove.
Further on that topic, are there any good examples or case law around an example of saturation?
Well, I can't specifically cite that, but I do know that in case law, there's a difference between saturation and competition. The ABCC does not favor decisions made purely to protect a competitive interest. In other words, for the board to deny a license simply because they want to protect one competitor against another competitor, that's not an adequate basis to deny. But it would be if there was an over-concentration of licenses in one particular area that, I think you've discussed at some length here, the stretch of road that we're talking about, both sides, north and south. You would need to decide whether or not that reaches the saturation point.
And the law simply says as deemed by the licensing authority.
Right, we decide what saturation is.
So is there potential, if this were approved, would the licensing authority come back and say that this area is saturated?
Well, again, I'm using the word adequate.
Yeah.
Adequate number of places to obtain the beverages. Again, I think from a legal sense, that goes to whether or not an area has been saturated with licenses as compared with, an intention to protect competitive interests. I know that's not an adequate basis to deny. That alone is not an adequate basis.
Okay.
During the hearing we had, that did come up that representatives of neighboring business, Yankee Lucas,
Right.
did speak about the need, and Mr. Hearn, Attorney Hearn at that time at the hearing had questioned that that was a competitive concern. And I think we all pretty much tried to make it clear that wasn't our concern.
Right.
Right. Okay. Anything further from the board? Okay. Pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the license.
Motion to approve the license made by Mr. Donnelly, seconded by Ms. Grow. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Chair votes aye. Vote is 3-2 for approval. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hearn. Okay. On to hour number 3.
I think you skipped over.
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
We skipped a couple things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4.6.
Yep. Do you mind?
Am I all set, or?
Do you mind staying for this next one?
Oh, sure.
Okay. Just for a point of clarification, perhaps.
Yes, yeah.
So item 4.6 is a one-day liquor request for the Hometown Arcade for a First Responders Night, submitting a request for a one-day liquor license for a Norwood First Responders Appreciation Night on Tuesday, August 8th, 2023, from 5 p.m. until 9 p.m. with 200 guests expected at their 61 Endicott Street location. So this is the same entity that was before us earlier for the all-alcohol license, which we did not give them. Is there anything that prohibits us from approving this?
No, you should consider this on its own merits.
Yes, I would make a motion to grant and just state there is something in the law if they have an application pending or if they have an application, but since we haven't approved anything, they don't.
Right.
So if we had approved them,
They might have been, we'd have to reread that section to make sure.
Yeah, that's right. It would have been a problem if they had been approved or had a license. You can't have two licenses on the same premises, so I
Gotcha.
think you're okay here.
okay, great.
Basically, if they try to reapply, they should wait until
Not do it
after
on
their
August 7th, yeah.
first responder
Yeah.
night.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay.
I think other than that, we're good.
Okay, great.
Thank you so
Good
much.
to see you all again.
Thank you.
Okay. Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve made by Mr. Plasko, seconded by Ms. Grow. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Unanimous. Okay, we did 4.7, 4.8, 4.9, 4.10, 4.11, 4.12, 4.12. Did we skip that one?
Yeah,
No,
we skipped that one.
Okay.
We approved it.
Okay, we approved
We
it.
have 4:15,
next.
yeah, we're at 4:15.
Should we take it again, just to make sure?
Yeah.
No, we approved it.
Okay, I think we did. Great. Okay, item 4.15, zoning board of appeals, associate appointments for discussion and vote of the board. So if you recall, a few meetings ago, we had all of the applicants in. And at the time, we said we would table it and take a vote later. At a subsequent meeting, we said, I said, and I was incorrect, that we got the green light to appoint all 5 as associate members. Looking a little bit further into it, I was wrong. I messaged everyone that had applied and said, we actually do need to take individual votes. The short of it is that the ZBA needs to consist of 5 full members and 5 associate members. And by appointing all 5, even though I think we were in agreement they were all 5 great candidates, that would put us over the limit of associate members. The thing that's a little tricky is that associate number can ebb and flow a little bit. In the past, people have dropped off the board, and we haven't always been at 5. It's a tough thing to keep track of, I think, and again, I will take the blame for that, but I think moving forward, we want to consistently have that 5-person board. So regardless of how we vote this evening, I think that we should encourage the potentially 2 people that aren't chosen to be associate members to stay in touch and either be, if they're interested in other committees or boards, great, or if they just want to kind of be in waiting for a spot to open up on the ZBA, that's okay too. There's nothing that prohibits them from staying in the town thing per se. Great. That being said, we do have to stagger the appointments. Mr. Plasko, that's correct.
Yes, there has to be one term expires every year, so if there's 5 members, they're 5-year appointments.
Great. Peter's done well. So I think the first thing we do is take a vote for a current associate member and his reappointment for a 5-year term. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I would make that, well, I don't know how you're going to handle it, but I would be ready to nominate, make a motion to reappoint Ryan Gorman. And again, by reappointment, that would be a 5-year term.
So the motion made by Mr. Plasko to reappoint Mr. Gorman for a 5-year term ending in 2028. Seconded made by Mr. Donnelly. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye unanimous. Great. So the next associate appointment would be for a 4-year term, correct?
Yeah, I think we didn't state just now, and I know you and I talked about it. Mr. Easy, Paul Easy is also a member. His term expires next year, so he would represent a 1-year. And then if he gets reappointed, he'll go for 5-year like everyone else, which leaves us 3 appointments, a 4, a 3, and a 2-year term.
A 4, a 3, and a 2-year term. Great. I would make a motion to appoint Ms. Powell to a 4-year term, beginning this year and ending in 2027.
Second.
Second made by Mr. Plasko. All those in favor?
Aye.
Did you say aye?
I'm in favor, yes.
Okay. Chair votes aye, unanimous. Great. I thought you said sorry about that. Okay. Do we have a motion for a 3-year appointment? Mr. Plasko.
Daniel, and you're going to help me with the last name because as impressive as I
Disidorio?
was with him, I'm not very good with these names.
Yeah, I think Disidorio.
Thank you. I would nominate the gentleman.
Motion made to appoint Mr. Disidorio for a 3-year appointment as an associate member beginning in 2023, ending in 2026, made by Mr. Plasko, seconded by Mr. Donnelly. All those in favor?
Opposed.
Opposed? The chair votes aye, 4-1. Do we have a motion made for a 2-year appointment?
I'd like to nominate Matt O'Neill.
Mr. Sad
Matt O'Neill.
makes a motion to appoint Mr. Matt O'Neill to a 2-year appointment as an associate member to begin in 2023 and end in 2024. On the motion, or?
Second.
Second made by Ms. Grow. All those in favor?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. All those opposed?
Opposed. I had a different candidate that would have gone to that spot, but that's the way it is.
Okay.
I had the same problem.
Yeah, and there's certainly nothing wrong as we tried to put all of them on before,
Yeah.
but if we had to break it down, the other one would have, in my mind, would have a slight priority.
Okay.
Nothing against Mr. O'Neill.
Great. So that was 4-1 vote, correct? Great. Great, so that takes care of that, Jess. So we have a full ZBA and a full associate members,
Mr. O'Neill is for a 2-year term, correct?
2-year term. And again, just to reiterate, in an ideal world, we would have been able to appoint everyone because I think they were all very good. We want to encourage the 2 that were not appointed this evening to stay in the mix. Yes, Mr. Sad.
Mr. Chairman, is there any other spots? They're so talented to lose them. Can we think of any
Talent
other,
Bank and other committees, but not on this committee. The rest
not on
of-
this committee, but
Yeah.
another committee that can get their feet wet?
Yeah, I think one of the things that Mr. Mizuko is good at is periodically kind of making that shout to
All
the
right.
public. But, Mr. Rosen, we could
Yeah.
probably,
I'm looking it up right now,
yeah,
actually.
maybe by the end of the meeting, we could have,
Yep.
that could be on your selectmen's agenda. if you guys-
I'll appoint them, yeah.
But yeah, we don't, it's the same thing with the master planning committee.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say, we got a lot of applications from people that we didn't necessarily really know in the orbit of already being involved with certain things. And that's a great trend, and I think it's continuing here. So it's sort of a good problem to have.
Yeah.
So yeah, we definitely want to encourage people. Mr. Rosen?
Hi. Per our town website, we have a very full slate of all town boards and committees. There's only 2 open positions at the moment. 1 seat on the Sustainability Commission and 1 seat on the Cable Commission. Otherwise, we're booked up.
Okay, great.
I
Thank-
believe they're still looking for a fence viewer.
That's kind of a running joke.
Oh,
But it's true, right? And we're always looking, wasn't Mr. Hearn a fence viewer for us?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Then Teddy Mo-
We should
Maybe we can write them a
get 'em
note
back.
on the,
All the
to
fence
other
viewers are
people.
smart enough to quit.
Good, okay, great.
Sounds like such an exciting opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Rosen, I appreciate that. Okay, great. So, moving forward.
18,
Sorry.
4.18. We did these.
Yeah, we did, 4.18.
Town owned.
4.20, Mr. Rosen.
Oh, sorry, 4.18, Town Owned Washington Street.
Oh, jeez, I skipped that one, I'm sorry. For discussion. Mr. Plasko, would you like to begin the conversation here, or?
Well, I guess I could. I know I personally was interested in what we were going to do with the 2 properties that we had gone to town meeting to purchase along Washington Street in front of the middle school, on either side, if you will, of the Morse House, even though there is one other property we did not acquire closest to the Morse House. And I had personally given some consideration to seeing if there was any merit in the board considering maybe trying to put the houses out for sale, to be moved, maybe to a nonprofit that might be able to make some use of it in a good way, and rather than tearing them down. We did go to town meeting, and we did basically say in our yellow sheets and everything that the intent would be to demolish them and move, and clear the area. So that's certainly, if that's what we decide to do, that was in keeping with where we started this whole process. Since I had that thought, and Mr. Mizuko, myself, and facilities did tour the property, one property I don't think is really the least bit suitable for moving. It's 2-story and so forth. The other one is a smaller, single-story house that, or it's actually it's a 2-story house, but
Single family.
yeah, it's a Cape style, single family. But the more I looked at the property and its condition, what the cost would be for anyone to try to move it, particularly in that location, there's almost no way, easy way out. You've got bridges and what have you. I think even if we offered it for $1 to someone who would make it available for, a good cause that serves the community, where would they move it to? Wouldn't it be more economically feasible for them to start from scratch than move it?
Right.
And in my personal opinion, even though I originally thought, why waste these buildings? I personally, at this point, don't think it's that viable of an option. The board could consider that. We could advertise and see if anything happens. But myself, I don't really think, as I just said a minute ago, that really, in the end, is a viable option. So I think when I spoke to Mr. Mizuko, even though we put in the yellow sheet that, that's likely what was happening, I thought the board, this should come to the board, and the board make a final determination at this point, what we had in mind for that property or properties, and give him direction. My thought at this point, again, going on, is that we give him direction to proceed with the demolition
Stipulation of
of the buildings.
Yeah, Thank you, Mr. Plasko.
And
Mr. Sa-
I was concerned about the funding too, but he reminded me that when we start the funding at town meeting, it included
Yeah.
estimates for demolition.
Yeah. Mr. Sad.
Bill, being an OJC friend of mine, I'm surprised he didn't think of this, but what if we made it a concession stand and just pulled it
I
down the
did.
back?
I actually suggested that, and every time I did, somebody turned their head the other way.
Okay, they're looking for $1 million for a concession
I know.
stand.
It's only 700.
700,000.
Come on.
700.
Mr. Donnelly.
So,
But I did think of that. Sorry. I'm sorry.
that's okay. So the town meeting has voted the language and the money, and they voted the money in for the money does include demolition according to the language of the town meeting. Is there any action required by us, or is this purely discussion?
I think the action is to direct the manager to proceed,
Right.
because they'll have to do through procurement, get somebody to come in and do the work.
Yeah.
If he needs direction, make sure we don't want to sell it or do something else with it.
Well, I think Mr. Rosen, you had something to
Yeah.
add.
Yes, I do have actually an
You know, go for it.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, we do have an update. Actually, the procurement process has already begun on the demo work, and the bids were received by the purchasing department, and a low bidder was identified at about $98,000 to demolish both of these properties.
Both of them?
Both properties, correct, $98K for both. The award letter has not been sent out to the low bidder yet, so we haven't publicly announced it yet, but the demo work is slated to be August 7th through August 18th for both homes. So barring any decisions tonight, otherwise, that's the plan going forward to demo the two houses. And if it, to the point about can we utilize these houses for some public good prior to their demolition, I spoke to our new fire chief, and he would like to have a couple of exercises there, some training exercises with those homes before they get demolished, to train the staff and the fire staff on forced entry and things like that. Nothing with the windows or the doors, but just some internal in the houses to use them before they're demolished.
That
Because they give them a lot of time.
right.
Yeah.
They're not. The fire department isn't doing a burn exercise.
No burn, just
Okay.
forced entry and some maneuvering and training exercises internal to the home. No burns though, as far as I know.
Yeah, and I'll just say, Mr. Plasko, I appreciate you looking into this. It was surprising to me too that it's not something you hear about, because it kind of, in theory, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like, this is a perfectly good home that someone was living in,
Right up till
just
now.
right up until the end. What's the use? How can we make it fit? But in my experience in working with some of the state funding entities in my day job, I hadn't heard of it either. You would think that all you talk about is the housing crisis, and there were probably other examples of housing that would be suitable if it were moved.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Mr. Pelletier was saying that the costs are
Exorbitant.
huge.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's it. Maybe it's simply just a money thing that people don't do this. They don't move houses, because you think of all the developments that go up all the time, and I'm sure people are being displaced. So, but I appreciate
And,
it.
and of course, along with that high expenses, you have to have the property somewhere. So,
Right, yeah, we don't have a ton of land available, but if we're maybe out in Western Mass, different story.
So I guess I would make a motion to authorize and direct the general manager to take necessary steps to clear those sites.
Okay, a motion made by Mr. Plasko to move forward with the necessary steps to prep for a demo. Seconded by Mr. Donnelly. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous. Great.
Abstain,
You abstain?
because no way I didn't hear the,
Oh, okay. You only missed a sentence or two. Great, okay. We're at memoranda finally?
Town meeting dates.
419.
Town meeting. dates.
Okay, Mr. Rosie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe at a previous selectmen's meeting a couple of weeks ago, there was an initial pass at the town meeting dates for fall town meeting. We were proposing November 13th, which is a Monday, to be the beginning of special town meeting, followed by the Thursday, the 16th, and the November 20th, if it needs to go to a third night, which hopefully we wouldn't have to, but we always like to plan for 3 nights. So these are dates that we did preliminary, just asked the school department if the auditorium would be available those evenings. The answer is yes, should we set the schedule? Should we do that?
If you remember, Mr. Chairman, I had suggested that, asked if it was any harm in waiting at least another meeting, which is now to this meeting, because it might have been something out there to maybe try to have a meeting in October instead of November. And asked Mr. Mizuko at the time if he thought the things scheduled for November would have a problem with that, could they be taken in October? And he seemed to think that it's possible. However, at least the item I was referencing or thinking about doesn't appear that that would be ready to move forward anyhow, so
Okay.
I'm certainly personally comfortable with these dates.
Okay. Any other discussion? Mr. Rosen, in terms of a due date for warrant articles, if you were to say November 13th,
Yes.
and to the board as well, not just you, but what are we saying in terms of when warrant articles would have to be in?
Sure, we usually back up about a month, so roughly October 13th would be the warrant closing date. And then obviously, to get to the warrant closing, there's multiple board meetings that are required, not just of the Selectmen, but of Finance Commission, Capital, since it's a capital town meeting. And so we're gonna be working all summer long on the warrant articles, but I would say cutoff would be somewhere in the vicinity of October 13th, roughly 4 to 5 weeks ahead of the town meeting date. Especially since during that time frame after the warrant closes, we, Selectmen take final yellow sheet recommendations, we mail everything out postally to town meeting members and make sure everybody has everything in hand 2 weeks prior to
So,
town meeting.
I'm sorry.
No.
So are you saying we're gonna close the warrant, have a list of items, and the selectmen sign that warrant on October 13th?
We usually close it.
If that's a Tuesday that we're meeting on?
Yeah, I know he's using generic dates. It's roughly a month ahead of the town meeting itself. The selectmen would close the warrant and then sign it, usually either the same meeting if it's ready, or if they have one more meeting after that to actually sign the final
Right, that's
document.
why we usually set a date so people know when to get them in by.
Correct, and I think
But
also.
I think the manager went over those. I think
Yeah.
if you don't have them with you, he did go over those.
Yeah, it's in the,
And I think we could just refer back to that reference and use those dates, unless somebody thought there was anything wrong with any of those dates.
No, I'm personally fine with it.
And it works around the holiday schedule and everything. Those dates are good.
Thank you.
My computer melted, so it's not working. But potentially, Mr. Donnelly can retrieve that
was it
information.
the 27th that we had that discussion?
It's
Close enough.
Great, okay. So we need
The dates previously recommended by the manager.
a motion made
With
to
town meeting
to
start
approve the
on
dates
November 13th.
previously recommended by the town manager to start town meeting on November 13th. Motion made by Mr. Plasko, seconded by Mr. Sad. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous. Great. Okay, memoranda.
Motion to file all items.
Motion to file all items made by Mr. Plasko, seconded by Mr. Sad. On the motion, Mr. Rosen, not to keep you here any longer, but item 5.1, I believe you had a little bit of information on that.
I did. I actually prepared a little bit just in case anybody was curious.
Yeah, I didn't want to leave you hanging there.
About the Holbrook HRAC grant. So this is some big news and good news. The town is in line to receive $8 million in grant funding to go towards the regional dispatch center. So what this is the state 911 is funded by the surcharge on our cell phone bills, and that money goes towards helping cities and towns with their communication needs. So through HRAC, we are going to be receiving our share of that money is to the tune of $8 million, and what that's going towards is to fund technology and to pull over all the records from the past prior to the regional dispatch center, so that when present-day dispatchers in Holbrook look up information historical about Norwood, they can pull data from years ago, and everything migrated nicely with this money that's going to help go towards that for history's sake. It's also going to go towards the full upgrade of 2 radio systems, including the ones that are over by Stop and Shop in Moderna.
Right.
There's a full upgrade and replacement of all the radio systems, so all new transmitters and repeaters. That's going to replace all mobile radios and radios that are in the public safety cars. So there are 65 active radios plus 18 backup ones, and with a couple of other spares, it rounds up to 90 radios total that's going to be replaced by this money. They're going to move all radios from analog to digital channels, And the police chief told me about a cool feature that these new radios are going to have, where you can play back the last 5 transmissions over the radio. So generally, public safety officers have radio comm on their shoulder, and if sometimes you'll be distracted, you won't hear it, and you missed what was said here, they can actually play back the last 5 transmissions, and it keeps
Because it's now digital as opposed to analog.
Correct. So
That's
it's a
cool.
really great upgrade. We're
Great.
the benefactors of this $8 million, and we thank HREC for this grant opportunity. And when I believe the funding is awarded. That letter that we received
Yeah.
is that it's moving
Yeah,
forward.
yeah.
So
It's great.
that's what I had.
Perfect. Can I consider that your manager's update?
Yes, please.
No, you can still have an update. I'm only kidding. So the motion to accept the memorandum.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Donnelly, second by Mr. Plasko. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Great. Officially, Mr. Rosen.
Yes.
You can say more.
Okay, I'll try to be brief. I did have some notes, but I'll try to go rapid fire on them. So hi, everybody. So I'm Mike Rosen. I'm the Assistant General Manager. We just a couple of things about the summertime. Obviously, summer is humming along. July 4th, since we have not had a meeting since July 4th. I just wanted to say for the record that it was excellent despite the so-so weather that day. Major thanks to everyone who was involved with the July 4th parade on both the staff side as well as the volunteer parade committee and all the volunteers that helped out on the day of July 4th. Our concert program is in full swing, and this is our brochure. We have these available. They were, I believe they were in the Norwood Record, and they also are available online, and you can pick up copies still at Town Hall. We have plenty of copies of these. We're about halfway through already. Summer is moving fast, but these are our Wednesday, Sunday, and also Monday Carol-on shows. Norwood Day preparations are already beginning, because that's only a few months away at this point. Camps and pools are having a great time. And just to share some figures with the board, Gary Pelletier was here earlier, our building commissioner, and he's only been on the job for less than a year, but he wanted to share some building permit numbers with you all. In FY23, the building department issued 2,667 permits for total fees collected of $3,552,398. And next year, we're also going to have a banner year. We've already expecting hospital permits in the amounts of over $5 million. FM Global at about 1.6 million, and also some big ticket ones from Moderna and Home Market Foods. So we're slated to have some very good building department years over the next couple of fiscal years. That's my report.
That's a good report. You are the bringer of good news, Mr. Rosen.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, Selectmen's addenda. Mr. Sad, we're going to start off with you.
Nothing tonight?
Excellent. Good. You didn't mention Mr. Sad's outfit on the 4th of July parade.
Yes.
Oh, did
Uncle
you
Sam.
mention that?
No,
Uncle
you
Sam.
look like Uncle Sam.
Yeah, I used to run that parade.
That was great.
It was a great parade. He had a good arm for a lefty.
He did.
Good.
I didn't even notice he threw the football in.
Yeah.
Ms. Grove.
All right, so what I wanted to tackle tonight was just getting us all on the same page. We obviously are going to have some visitors come in to see us from the State House. So I had polled, reached out for feedback from folks to see if I can send topics to them ahead of time. They'll come more prepared. The staff will be able to gather information. And I just wanted to go through the list of what I had brought in from folks. From my end, the main thing I'm interested in hearing from them is if there's anything that either has recently moved through the State House that they might want to, bring to folks' attention, because maybe if you're not paying super close attention, it might have flown under your radar. And if there's any items that, while not, specifically Norwood could be impacted by the halo of, if there's anything on their radar like that. So that's one item. A couple of different bills came through that folks have questions about. One is the Student Opportunities Act. Another is questions about H562, which is the Inflation Adjustment for Education Aid. Had questions about the Act to Increase Community Preservation Funds, which is H2933. And then the Senate Bill S562, which is the one pertaining to material cost increases for the MSBA projects. So those were some of the legislation that folks are curious about, and I can, if we're all in agreement, send those ahead of time. Another was questions about just an update essentially on the FY24 budget, basically, and committee work to resolve the budget and get it to the governor for signature. And then some specific questions about the way that state revenue trends are going, such as what's the status of the rainy day fund, what kind of revenues have been generated so far by the so-called millionaires tax, and then what the status is regarding the payment for the unemployment tax error. And that's in regards to an audit finding where the state apparently owed $2.5 billion to federal. So these are the things that so far have been brought up. If anybody had other ones that you've thought of since I had reached out, I'm happy to take them tonight and we can talk about them. One thought I even had was, do we want to even broach, not it for any specific action on their part, but just to put the awareness in their ear about this notion of people trading the alcohol licenses around like a currency? Like, is that something that we want to give feedback about?
I think we can maybe table that for another discussion. I think,
sure.
And I appreciate you putting this together. I think with COVID, we sort of got off track with having our legislators come in. I think we want to kind of reestablish that. So I don't think this will be the only opportunity for us to speak with them. But I like the idea of bringing up things like that, like Mr. Sad said earlier, because maybe there is something that we can do. But yeah, I'm excited to have Senator Rush and Representative Rogers in next week. It'll be nice. Maybe we can put the air conditioning on for some of the meeting.
Yeah. Let's leave it on from now on.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Grow. And I, admittedly, I have to refine my questions
Sure.
for you, so I'll try to get that to you by tomorrow.
Yep, that's perfect.
Do you have anything else?
Essentially, did anybody have anything else that they didn't get a chance to send to me?
I was thinking of general comments or questions regarding 3A.
Yeah, okay.
I know Representative Rogers got an amendment to the state budget where they couldn't penalize housing authorities like they were threatening.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that survives,
Mhm.
whether
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
chance of making that permanent, not just because the budget year expires, I think that law expires, or that amendment would expire, just how that all works.
Mhm.
And maybe some general discussion of how there might be ways of improving that from the community's
Sure.
perspective, different communities, including ours, of course,
Mhm.
perspective.
And then another question I was going to have is regarding the format, since it's been a little while since they've been in. Do we have a preference on whether I structure this as a formal agenda and we take items, or would you prefer it to be a little more open-ended?
Yeah, open-ended.
Sure.
And I'm happy to turn the meeting over to you once we get acquainted, or reacquainted.
Sounds good.
Great.
So that was it for me.
All right, Mr. Plasko.
Nothing this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Donnelly.
Except for a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, right.
Well, I only have 17 items, Bill.
Okay. I'm ready, Bob.
I'll be quick. So, kudos to everybody who was involved in the organizing the pinning ceremony for Chief Bailey. It was a really nice event. It was good that the family and firefighters were all in attendance, and just a great event. Stormwater Utility Committee meeting is continuing the public information sessions. One coming up Thursday, the 20th, this week, 6:30 p.m. at the Senior Center. 6:30 p.m. the Stormwater Utility Committee meets. Public information to find out what the story is with our stormwater issues, what are the plans for correcting them, and what are the ideas around how to finance the very large projects that are associated with stormwater. A suggestion for the board to consider, back during the, and it's kind of related to the building permit update that Mr. Rosen gave us. So we had some really good news on permits, as well as during the presentation of materials at town meeting. We're showing that a lot of our local revenues were trending at a very good basis for FY #24. That was in May. I was going to suggest that perhaps once fiscal year 23 does close, it has closed actually as of June 30th, that and this is something for, I think, in this, probably the fall time frame, maybe just prior to town meeting, that we have the Director of Finance come and just give us an update to that May report, so we can have a final detail in terms of where did our revenues land and how much above projected were they, because I think the news is good, and I think that's going to be it's good to know that discussion as we head into town meeting in the fall in any event. So that would be my suggestion. Mr. Rosen, if you could, if the board concurs, we can talk about it at a subsequent meeting. Again, sometime in the fall. I understand it takes a while for the fiscal year close activities to be done. The other item that just personal curiosity, and this could be something that maybe the manager could just route to the board. I know that we authorized the compensation study some time ago. I believe it's been done, it's completed. Perhaps some kind of report of the compensation study, just so the board can get some exposure to what was the end result of the project, working with the consultant to relook at our current compensation program. Other than that, I'm done, and I have no problem making a motion if it's appropriate.
I'm good. I'm sure there's
To
something I'm
adjourn.
forgetting, but, motion to adjourn made by Mr. Donnelly, seconded by Mr. Plasko. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous. Thank you so much. All right, we'll see you next week.
No air conditioning.